Have you ever been told what to do in a situation, but in the moment your body just didn't respond the way you expected? Maybe you froze, maybe you second-guessed yourself, maybe you felt like something was off, but couldn't explain why. There's nothing wrong with you, and everything your body did actually made sense. Because when it comes to safety, it's not about what you know, it's about how your body responds under pressure. And it's something most self-defense training completely ignores. Hey, I'm Andre, founder of Self-Defense Hub, and this is our podcast. This podcast is here to give you something different. Not fear, not overwhelm, not a list of things you shouldn't do, but real practical ways to help you feel more confident, trust your instincts, and move through the world with a greater sense of control. Because you deserve to feel safe, not just sometimes, but every day, every hour, every minute, every second. For episode 1, I'm going to be talking about the importance of trauma-informed self-defense. The link to the article is in the description. Today we're going to be talking about something that changes everything when it comes to safety: trauma-informed self-defense. Because real self-defense isn't just physical, it's understanding how your body responds, how your nervous system works, and how to work within yourself, not against yourself. So instead of feeling like you've failed in a situation, you start to understand what's actually happening and how to respond in a way that supports you. Self-defense is often sold as one thing: learn a few moves, get tougher, feel safer. But for many people, especially trauma survivors, that message is far too simple. A trauma-informed self-defense approach starts from a different place. It recognizes that the mind and body may react to danger, stress, touch, noise, or pressure in ways that are automatic, protective, and deeply shaped by past experiences. A trauma-informed practice should be built around understanding a trauma's effects, recognizing signs of stress, responding with safer policies and teaching methods, and actively avoiding re-traumatisation. The key principles that we deeply consider is safety, trustworthiness, collaboration, empowerment, attention to culture, history, and gender. This matters in self-defense because many standard classes were not designed with survivors in mind. Fast drills, surprise grabs, shouting commands, and pushing through it style of coaching can overwhelm the nervous system instead of building real confidence. A trauma-informed class does not remove challenges, it changes how challenges are introduced. The goal is not to make people hard, quote unquote hard. The goal is to help them feel safer, more capable, and more in control of their own choices. While here at Self-Defense Hub, we have special self-defense training adapted for trauma survivors, we encourage other instructors from all styles of martial arts and self-defense who might be reading this or listening to this to work alongside us to deliver trauma-informed self-defense to their students. As studies suggest that when designed carefully and informed by trauma research and clinical input, it can work as a helpful tool to healing rather than just a physical skills class. Trauma-informed self-defense is not a watered-down class. It's a smarter framework. At its core, it means teaching personal safety in a way that respects the nervous system, honors boundaries, and gives people meaningful control over how they participate. So instead of asking, how do we make students cope with stress? It asks, how do we create enough safety and choice that students can learn under stress without being pushed into shutdown, panic, or disassociation? That shift changes everything. It changes the room setup, it changes the language an instructor might use, it changes whether touch is ever assumed, It changes whether drills are explained before they happen and how they're explained. It changes whether students can step out without being shamed. It changes whether success is measured only by physical dominance or also by noticing discomfort, using a clear voice, setting a boundary, leaving early, asking for help, or choosing not to engage. This approach lines up closely with trauma-informed care principles: safety, trust, collaboration, empowerment, and resistance to re-traumatisation. In practice, trauma-informed self-defense should include clear explanations before drills, explicit consent before touch or close contact, options for observation, modification, or opting out, predictable class structure, grounding or regulation breaks, non-shaming coaching. More than one right way to respond to a threat, and a broad view of self-defense that includes verbal skills, exit, support seeking, and recovery after an incident. The deeper idea is simple. Self-defense is not just about what your body can do in the perfect moment. It is about what becomes possible when your body and mind are supported well enough to act. Let's look at why ordinary self-defense classes can miss the mark. Many traditional classes do help people, but many also assume that stress exposure automatically creates resilience. It is not always true. For someone with a trauma history, especially interpersonal violence or coercive control, high-intensity drills can feel less like training and more like a replay. Even well-meaning exercises can become too much when they include sudden grabbing, cornering, yelling, forcing eye contact, or pressure to fight through fear. Trauma-informed care specifically aims to avoid re-traumatisation because environments, procedures, and interactions can trigger strong responses when they resemble earlier harm. Another problem is the myth of the perfect response. Standard self-defense culture sometimes celebrates one ideal outcome, which is immediate action. Loud commands, fast escapes, strong strikes. But trauma research and survivor education show that protective responses are more varied than that. People may fight, flee, freeze, or fawn. These are survival responses, not moral choices. So understanding that freeze and fawn can be protective responses to threat can help to reduce accidentally shaming students. So if a student hears never freeze, they may think about a time where they have had this response in the past and feel like it is a failure. A better message is your body has survival strategies. We can learn to understand them, work with them, and widen your options. So ordinary classes tend to over-focus on physical techniques. Trauma-informed self-defense broadens the picture. It treats awareness, verbal boundaries, exit planning, intuition, community support, and aftercare as real parts of safety. That wider lens is often more practical and more humane. One of the most important ideas in trauma-informed self-defense is that the body reacts before the thinking mind catches up. When people face danger, they may experience survival responses such as fight, flee, freeze, or fawn. And what that can look like is the fight response can be aggression, yelling, pushing. And why this happens is that they attempt to overpower the threat. The flight survival response is running away to escape safely. The freeze response is the inability to move or speak. So the nervous system gets overloaded. And the fawn response, this can be pleasing or complying to reduce the perceived danger. These responses are automatic and there are ways people try to stay safe in threatening situations. Knowing this matters because self-defense training often assumes students will be able to access skills and demands. Sometimes they can, sometimes they cannot. Under stress, fine motor, control, speech, memory, and sequencing may change. A person may know exactly what to do in theory and still struggle to do it in the moment. And it's not a weakness, it's biology. Once instructors understand that, the aim of training changes. Rather than treating stress reactions as bad habits to punish, trauma-informed instructors teach around them. They build simple skills first. They repeat patterns without overload. They help students notice body cues early. They normalize pauses. They allow recovery. They make room for the fact that voice, movement, and choice may come back in stages. This also helps students reframe past experiences. Many survivors carry shame because they froze, complied, or didn't act in the way they imagined they should. But surviving is not failing. Surviving is surviving. A trauma-informed approach says the body is trying to protect you with the options it had at the time. From there, training can become less about fixing a broken person and more about expanding access to choice. Let's look at safety before skill. In mainstream self-defense, safety is often treated as physical only. In trauma-informed self-defense, safety is physical, emotional, relational, and procedural. Physical safety is the easy part to picture. Proper supervision, controlled drills, clear boundaries, no unnecessary risk. Emotional safety is just as important. Students need to know what is happening, what is expected, what their options are, and how to stop an activity. A good class often begins with clear expectations. What kind of contact, if any, will happen today? Can students say no? Can they step aside? What happens if someone gets activated or upset? Is there pressure to disclose personal history? Clear choices, clear answers reduce fear and uncertainty. Safety also means instructors do not confuse intensity with effectiveness. More stress is not always better training. Too much stress can shut learning down. A trauma-informed coach watches the overload and adjusts pacing before a student feels trapped. Here is the key point. Skills grow better when safety comes first. People learn more when they are not bracing against the class itself. When students feel steadier, they are more likely to use their voice, move with purpose, and remember what they practice. Safety is not the opposite of challenge. It is the base that makes challenge useful. Choice, consent, and control in practice. Trauma often involves loss of control. That is why choice is not a bonus feature in trauma-informed self-defense. It is the method. Trauma-informed frameworks should emphasize collaboration and empowerment alongside safety and trust. In a class setting, that translates into practical choices people can actually use. For example, an instructor might offer something like, here, why don't you watch first? If you'd like to join, you're welcome to join when you're ready. You might want to substitute training with a partner with using a pad instead. You might want to practice the words only. You might want to do the skills without contact. You might want to skip physical participation but stay in the room. Or you might want to or need to step out and come back when you're ready. These are not loopholes, they are learning pathways. Choice helps people stay engaged without tipping into overwhelm. It also teaches something powerful. It teaches them that they are in control and they're allowed to notice what's happening within their body and how it's responding to it. Consent matters. No one should be touched, grabbed, cornered, or physically corrected without clear permission. Consent should be ongoing, not assumed once at the start of the class. Instructors also need to model what respectful checking in sounds like. You might want to say, are you okay to try this? Would you prefer a demo instead? Do you want less contact? This turns consent into a living skill, not just a slogan. The result is a class that builds control from the inside out, means that students don't just learn what to do if someone crosses the line, they experience what it feels like when their own line is respected. One of the best things about trauma-informed self-defense is that it widens the definition of success. Yes, physical skills can matter, but self-defense is bigger than hitting, kicking, or escaping a grab. It also includes noticing discomfort early, using space, naming a boundary, leaving a bad situation, texting a friend, choosing a seat near an exit, asking a manager for help, ending a date, refusing to be rushed, or making a safety plan. Empowerment self-defense frameworks describe self-defense as comprehensive rather than purely physical. They often include verbal skills, emotional awareness, boundary setting, and violence prevention alongside physical techniques. That matters because many unsafe situations begin long before physical contact. They often involve pressure, grooming, manipulation, isolation, or repeated boundary testing. A trauma-informed lens helps students notice these patterns without blaming themselves for not spotting them sooner. It also helps people drop the fantasy that self-defense must look dramatic to count. A clear no counts. Walking away counts. Not opening the door counts. Changing plans counts. Calling for support counts. Getting through the moment however you can counts. This broader view is often especially helpful for survivors. It creates room for dignity and realism. It says, you don't need to become a fighter in the narrowest sense. You need more options, more awareness, and more support for using them. Now, can trauma-informed self-defense support healing? Self-defense is not therapy, but it can support healing when it is taught with care. Research published in Violence Against Women described a self-defense curriculum modified as an experiential psychoeducational intervention for trauma survivors. The authors argued that a well-designed program aligned with trauma research and developed with a therapist's input can be an important adjunctive intervention that is to be worked alongside their therapy. That doesn't mean every class is going to be healing, but good ones can offer valuable experiences. Using a strong voice, feeling the body, complete an action, choosing when to engage, practicing boundaries, and learning that activation can rise and settle without disaster. Those are not small things. For some people, the biggest shift is not physical confidence, it is a new relationship with their own body. Instead of seeing the body as the place where fear lives, they begin to experience it as a source of information, protection, and capacity. Even noticing, I need a pause, can be part of recovery because it reinforces self-trust. The most ethical way to talk about this is with balance. Trauma-informed self-defense can be empowering. It may support confidence, agency, and practical safety skills. It should not be marketed as a cure, and instructors should stay within their scope. Therapy is therapy, coaching is coaching. The overlap can be helpful, but the boundaries matter. What students should look for in a class? Not every class that says trauma-informed truly is. Look for their behavior, not their marketing. So, good signs include clear explanations, opt-in participation, no forced disclosure, consent around touch, a predictable structure, and instructors who respect boundaries without making a fuss. You want a teacher who can handle hesitation without shaming it. You also want a class that values verbal skills and situational choice, not just physical domination. So be cautious if a class uses surprise attacks as a teaching tool, mocks fear or freezing, especially in their explanations, treats opting out as a weakness, that's a huge one, assumes everyone must do partner work, uses aggressive yelling to, quote, toughen people up, promises you will never freeze again, and pushes people to share trauma stories in public. A trustworthy program should fit trauma-informed principles such as safety, collaboration, and empowerment, and avoid re-traumatisation. You don't need the hardest class, you need the one that helps you learn. And that's what we do at Self-Defense Hub. We focus on real-world safety, awareness, and helping you build confidence in a way that actually feels supportive, not overwhelming. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear this too. And if you're ready to take this a step further, you can download our free safety guide in the link below. You deserve to feel safe, strong, and in control every single day. I'll see you in the next episode.